So now we're going to be delving into the world of drama, and we're going to be looking specifically at a radio drama. The one that you'll be reading and listening to for this lesson is The Hitchhiker by Lucille Fletcher, and the version you'll be hearing is narrated by Orson Welles. So here are some important terms. Allusion, that's reference to something culturally important. For example, the Bible or Shakespeare, something that a lot of people would be able to recognize. Foreshadowing, hints of what is to come later in the drama. This usually builds suspense. Frame narrative, that's a story within a story. It usually opens up sometime in the future and flashes back to when the events first began. We see this happen a lot in the stories where people start out, they're very old, and then they're talking to somebody, explain something, and then flash back to when they were young, and that's when the most of the story, the movie takes place, is when they're young. And then it comes back at the end where they're old and remembering again. The Cask of Amontillado is another example of a frame narrative. Remember, that starts out 50 years later, flashes back to when he was actually plotting to kill Fortunato, and it comes back at the end to 50 years later when he's saying rest in peace. The script, that's the written form of the drama with stage directions, dialogue, and other cues. Dialogue, the words to be spoken by the actors. Stage directions, those are directions given to the actors what they're supposed to be doing or how they're supposed to be saying their lines. For example, it may say laughing. I wouldn't actually say laughing out loud. I'd be going ha 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 while I'm saying my lines. So these usually appear in parentheses, which means I'm not supposed to say that out loud. I'm supposed to be doing that while I'm saying my lines. Sound effects, those are sounds artificially created and added to the drama. And in a radio drama, very often there's a person in the studio while they're creating the drama, and they have all these sorts of equipment that help them recreate certain sounds, and they usually do that while the drama is being recorded. And in films, it's usually done later on in the editing stage during post-production. Juxtaposition, that's an important term. That's overlapping of two contrasting elements for a certain effect. And breaking the fourth wall, that's when the actors in the movie or play actually acknowledge or interact with the audience to kind of break down that invisible wall that exists between the stage and the audience, or between the screen and the audience. So let's think about radio drama versus visual drama. So sometimes, some people will think that a visual show would be more effective because you can actually see it. You don't have to use your imagination as much. Other people would say the radio drama is more effective because you get to use your imagination. So consider a ghost movie. We can get really scared by the special effects and makeup that we see. They can do some really scary stuff. And the ghost can seem very real. However, we have a certain sense of safety in the fact that the ghost is trapped on the screen. We do not expect it to come flying out at us, right? So even though in our imagination it may fly out at us, for the most part we feel safe. But in a radio, there's no screen. With just the room, turn off the lights, that ghost could be anywhere in the room sneaking up to you. Could be right behind you. So a similar effect can be attained when movies or plays break the fourth wall. The concept here is that a stage play or movie screen has walls on all sides except the invisible one in the front that separates the world of the drama from the audience. In movies, that's the screen. In a stage play, that's the end of the stage. When an actor acknowledges the presence of the audience or interacts with the audience, that is known as breaking the fourth wall. William Castle did this in his production of The House on Haunted Hill in the 1950s. So during key points in the film, he had skeletons rigged up around the theater to lie out all over the theater, over their heads and around the room, to make them feel like the skeletons were coming out of the movie world into their world. There is a part in the televised version of The Hitchhiker from the Twilight Zone where the hitchhiker looks directly at the camera, at the audience. That would be breaking the fourth wall. You may have noticed this a lot if you watch the modern movie Deadpool, where the actor talks a lot as in what they call asides to the audience. So the different types of drama, you have stage drama, radio drama, television dramas, movie dramas. But before the takeover of television, families would gather around to listen to the favorite radio shows. And since radio dramas do not have any visuals, they rely on these factors. So you need to have, again, narration, dialogue, sound effects, music, and really important is the imagination of the listener. So here's an example of the script. He's saying, I've got to speak quickly. At any minute, the link may break. This may be the last thing I ever tell on earth, the last night I ever see the stars. Here's the narration. Yes, it's a first-person narrator. There's music and sound effect cues that tell us what the sound is supposed to be doing and when it's supposed to start or end. The dialogue, which is the lines the actors are saying, and the stage directions. So when there in parentheses it says apprehensive, that means Mrs. Adams is going to say her lines apprehensively. So, goodbye, son. And Adams, when it says lightly, he's going to say it in a more carefree manner. Goodbye, mother. So the narrator, the one who's playing the narrator in this radio rendition of the play is Orson Welles. And he was famous, or rather notorious, for his production of The War of the Worlds on the radio in 1938. So in the 1930s, people in the U.S. relied on the radio to bring them the latest news. Portrayed as a series of realistic news announcements, ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt this program to announce the War of the Worlds radio production caused a major panic because many people believed the U.S. was really being invaded by Martians. Orson Welles makes an allusion to this production in the introduction to Hitchhiker when he alludes to a production he did involving two planets. Juxtaposition is when two seemingly contrasting elements are overlaid for a specific effect. So you may have seen this happen in a scary movie. There's someone sneaking through the woods or something, and it's really dark and scary. And the music in the background is playing "Pop Goes the Weasel" for an eerie effect. So juxtaposition, the Hitchhiker, you may notice that it talks about rain splatters on the hitchhiker's shoulder, even though it is a hot, dry day. And then there's a juxtaposition of images when his description of when he's driving, he has the indifference of a fly crawling across the face of the moon. Fly is a very small, insignificant, mundane sort of thing, and the moon is huge and otherworldly. So it's kind of emphasizing the idea of the real world, mundane, colliding with the supernatural. So like I said earlier, this drama is told in a frame narrative. It starts out in Gallup, New Mexico, telling the story to the audience, pondering what is going on. And he says, this all started 6 days ago, blah, blah, blah. And then we flash back to when he's starting on the road trip, talking to his mother, driving along, encountering all sorts of scary stuff, and finally at the end arriving at Gallup, New Mexico to make the phone call. So in the first part, in the frame narrative, we have some foreshadowing because we see that something scary has happened to him. We're building suspense. What was a scary thing? And that something's nearly driven him crazy. And we know that at the end, he's going to end up in Gallup, New Mexico. In the story within the story, we meet his mother. And so she seems calm and reliable. And that's preparing us for the ending of the play. And also when he's talking to his mother, she warns him not to pick up strangers along the way. So that gives us a little hint that that's going to play an important role in the drama. Some possible themes. Of course, male anxiety is a very convincing theme. You could think about the car as a symbol of control, and that little by little, all that is logical and controllable is taken away from Ronald Adams, leaving him feeling very small and insignificant. For example, when he says with the indifference of a fly, that's him feeling very small next to the lunar and the supernatural, and insignificant in comparison with the vastness of space and time. He talks about the glacial upheavals and the stars above, so he's feeling very small and insignificant in face of the unknown. Others are acceptance of one's destiny, dealing with guilt, and there are many more possibilities. So I want you to be able to stretch your imagination and see what you can pull from this drama.